We ready? If I could have your attention in the room, let's get started.
All right, welcome everyone to our July NAPCO chapter meeting. If you will, please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Mike. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the July NAPCO chapter meeting. My name is Mike Beckstrand. I'm with Cal OES. I'm a regional communications coordinator out of Reading and your chapter president. Just a couple of housekeeping items. If we need to evacuate the building, evacuate either here or in the back, and we'll meet outside. Restrooms are just outside the door there on your left, and lunch will be coming later. So right now, we will start with introductions. Please remember to use the microphone. We are live streaming on the internet on YouTube, so welcome to those that are online. And we'll start up here in the front.
Lena Wiggins, Alameda County Sheriff's Dispatch Manager.
Good morning, Mandy Montalvo, Public Safety Communications Manager for the City of Elk Grove and your Chapter Vice President.
Good morning, Anna Trinidad, Emergency Communications Manager, Stockton Fire Department, and your President-elect.
And good morning, Larry Smith, City of Stockton, Stockton Fire Department.
Good morning, my name's Jamie Johnson. I'm with Motorola Solutions, and I support PSAPs in the Central Valley area, assisting them with their call handling solutions and any solutions adjacent to the 911 center.
I'm Chris Short with Motorola Solutions. I'm also call handling, covering Northern California, basically San Francisco, Contra Costa, and then over to Sacramento and up above.
Good morning, Shelley McMahon. I'm with Office of Emergency Services, Public Safety Communications, and I'm also one of your chapter's board of directors.
Hello, I'm Gordon Poole, your East Bay Motorola representative, and live down in San Jose, and good to see you, Lena. It's been some time since I've been to a NAPCO meeting, so looking forward to it.
Derek Alvarez with Motorola. I'm National Strategic Accounts.
Yeah, hi, I'm Michael Elder with Cal OES, the Next Gen 911 branch. I'm a Next Gen 911 manager.
I'm Michael Proscia with the San Francisco Department of Technology RF infrastructure side of things, and then also your alternate frequency advisor for NAPCO.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Larry Weber. I'm the president of the sales group. We're a manufacturer's rep firm and very active in APCO in all phases. We've been CCAMs in many regions, and currently a member of our team is CCAM in the state of Washington, Idaho, Montana, and Alaska. And we're also active on the California APCO conference that's coming up. So please try to get your agencies to send you. And lastly, we do a lot of work in the PSAPs. One is Campbell and their grand opening of their new technology in their PSAP, and RTCC is August 10th. I think local agencies have been invited to come over to see that, so I highly recommend you do that. Thank you.
Good morning. I'm Iggy Brigado with JPS. We're an engineering house based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a solutions engineer We design and manufacture communication interoperability, 100% protocol agnostic solutions, as well as probably one of the last analog receiver voters on the market. And we can also support IP backhaul. Been doing that since around 2017. I'm based out of San Jose, and I'm happy to be here. Thanks.
The firmware update is coming. Good morning, everybody. It's great to see everybody. Been working with Iggy for a little while, right? I'm with Larry, the sales group, and as a manufacturer's rep, we have our hands in a lot of different things. We've recently, the last couple of years, ventured into audio video, so when I take a look in this room, I see a screen, I see a projector. We could turn that into a gigantic video wall. Money's not an object, right? So yeah, we could do video walls as big as you guys want. At the same time, some of you guys actually have low band needs. I still have access to the only manufacturers that make low band base stations and repeaters. I've got a company that's making low band portables. Okay, so if you guys have any needs, I know public safety is unique, you know, but the water district's a different story. So if you guys have some needs, let us know. I can find gear for you.
Hi, I'm Dave Jones with EF Johnson, JVC Camlet. I'm solutions engineer for, well, pretty much the U.S. except for the extreme East Coast. And, yeah, I work with systems as well as subscribers now. So I do it all. And thank you much.
Hi all, I'm Nicole Bilali. I'm with Zetron, a critical communications company that does everything from LMR systems countywide, interoperability within that, dispatch systems, fire station alerting, call handling. Looking forward to hopefully getting on to the California state contract here pretty soon with our call handling solution. Thank you.
Back here.
Good morning, Carl Grover, City of Roseville, your immediate past president, secretary, and treasurer.
Jim Lencioni with the County of Placer, and I'm also your chapter PIO and executive council rep.
Hi, I'm John Aurelius of Public Safety Innovation out of Sacramento. We design and build mobile command centers and specialty vehicles. One of the things I'd like to introduce today is the concept of a triple-use Sprinter van, where we're doing it as a small two-seat communications vehicle, as well as hostage negotiation and drone support. Any one of those uses can be taken to the field.
JD with Public Safety Innovations, basically what he said.
I'm Manny Vieira. I'm your CCAM and also a member of the Commercial Advisory Council.
All right. Come back up where my agenda is. At this time, we'll go into our committee reports. One thing that I brought that I'll mention right now, a few weeks ago, Modoc County recently lost their 911 translation contract, which means they couldn't do any more translations for 911 calls. And in the back on the table and online is a memo that was sent out in December of 2025 from Cal OES that there is a contract for PSAPs to receive 911 translation services through the state. So if your PSAP needs 911 translation services, there's contact information on the memo on the back of the table where you can get that taken care of at no cost to you. And we'll go through our committee reports. And we'll start with our awards and recognition. Anna?
Good morning. I do not have anything new to report for words in recognition, with the exception of in November, our nominations for 2026, 2027, the Spring 2027 Awards Banquet will open. Start thinking now about who you've come across, what incidents have occurred during this year. That would be a good way to recognize somebody. Get a stack together. The more submissions, the better.
Do a conference and programs?
There is also a flyer at the back table for the 2026 NAPCO conference that's held this year in October. It's in San Diego at the Town and Country. We'd love to see everybody there. All of our commercial partners in the room, if you have not gotten your booth yet, we're still looking for our platinum level sponsors. And then, of course, the regular booths as well. We do still have some availability, so get them now before they sell out. And no chapter meeting in in August for the National APCO Conference. Our next chapter meeting will be in September in Lathrop.
Cool. And in regards to the conference, registration is open to attend for participants, so I encourage you to get that going. Manny, commercial activities?
The only thing I have is I want to also talk about the state conference. So please, if you haven't registered as a vendor, please do. When it comes to our monthly meetings, we have 3 more this year. We have sponsors for all 3. I am taking reservations for next year. I have 3 openings left for next year's meetings. So if you're interested in next year, please let me know, and I'll get you on the calendar. Other than that, I guess we'll just see everybody in San Antonio.
You bet. Cool. Constitution and bylaws. Mandy, we got a lot to talk about.
I do have a lot to talk about. 3 pages, in fact. But it's not all Constitution and bylaws, so there'll be some other stuff. But so for Constitution and bylaws, we do have 2 proposed amendments. One of them is to an article in our NAPCO bylaws, and one of them is an article in our policy manual. So the first one is to Article 3, Section 1 of our NAPCO bylaws. It's basically changing language to align with the APCO bylaws, properly defining membership and types of memberships that are able to vote. So this is to ensure that all ballots provided and votes casted are for full and life members versus we are using the term currently active members. So the verbiage is just changing to match National APCO's verbiage that they use in their bylaws as well. The second is a proposed amendment to our policy manual, Article 1, Section 1.3 and 1.4, and again is just to change some language to properly align with APCO's policy manuals when defining business partners. Currently, it's going to change it to government, I think it's government agencies, commercial agencies versus what we currently have. So both of these amendments will be posted on the website, and it will go to a vote at our next chapter meeting in September. So for further details or more details on that, that will be posted on our website. I'm going to go into the rest. Okay, so my next section is legislative updates. So this is to kind of go over some of the laws that have been moving through our government in Sacramento that are affecting 911 or NextGen. So the first one is AB 872. This would increase the punishment on swatting calls and make any subsequent offenses a wobbler. They could be a felony depending on the circumstances. That one currently is had made it out of the Appropriations Committee, which it didn't do last year, so it is now currently still moving through the legislature and is with the Senate. AB 1805, this is the NextGen 911 bill that would require an audit and additional reporting on that project. That one is also currently with the Senate. And then SB 985 would require Cal OES to submit specific reports to the legislature regarding the NextGen 911 system. That one started in the Senate and is now with the House. So it is all moving. In addition, we just got word yesterday from Cal OES that as part of the budget that the governor signed off on June 29th, includes several provisions and actions that will guide the future implementation of Next Gen 911 for us. I think that was sent out to most of our agencies, but just to kind of briefly go over it, this is going to make requirements that include independent technical evaluations, an audit, quarterly reporting, some changes to the 911 advisory board, and then the long-term Next Gen 911 system. So they're requesting proposals for the long-term system. And it's not going to be, so it will not be released until 60 days following the completion of the technical evaluation. So, and then the bridge contract with Atos does remain in effect. So that's all part of what the governor signed into the budget last month. All right, moving forward with member services. So a couple of highlights from the member services July newsletter. There's a advertisement there. We do have a 2-day tactical dispatch course that will be presented at our Cal APCO conference. So it's a great way for your dispatchers who need post credits, but also maybe aren't tactical dispatch trained at this point. So you can send them to the conference and also get them this class. So they'll have a 16-hour post class for that. And it's on the 18th and 19th, which are the first 2 days of the conference. There's also a new member benefit through APCO, which is called Vasana. It focuses on resiliency and performance. So it's a feature that members can use. And it provides practical, data-driven ways to better understand and support our health, resilience, and performance, both at and away from the console. So it's a great thing for our dispatchers to check out, another tool that they can use for their mental health and resiliency. So, and then operations, well, there's only 3 of us here. So if you want to stick around after lunch, we can sit and chat. I do have a presentation later, so maybe there'll be some topics from that as well. So that's all I have.
Thank you. Next is dockets. Michael, do you have anything for dockets and frequency advisory?
From what I recall, there wasn't much to add, but there was something that has been going on for, I want to say since maybe the beginning of the year, is that there's pretty routine updates in the FCC dockets or daily digests that we get, myself and John, with regard to changes in what network or routing equipment, as well as drone or unmanned air vehicle equipment is permitted to be used in public safety, and that's constantly being updated. So, and these are obviously networking is something that's constant, and drones usage is growing very quickly. So if your agencies are really involved in that and you want to know what the most up-to-date version of that list is, you can send myself or John Lemon an email, and we can, instead of trying to put a really long URL up on the screen here to note down, we can maybe send you a link to where on the FCC website you can find that most up-to-date information.
Cool. Great. Thank you. Larry, emerging technology, do you have anything?
Right now, not a lot to update. And this isn't really emerging technology, but as everybody knows, AT&T is really cutting back on their copper lines. I know in our area, a lot of people have been notified that their copper lines are going away by the end of the year, and they're replacing them with cell services. So something to be aware of, that VoIP is mainstream now.
Yeah, and where I live, I know some people that are on copper and they refuse to go to cellular. So we'll see what happens there. Jim, Executive Council.
So for Executive Council for this this last month, so this is going to be the activities of May, because the Executive Council report for June didn't come out to the end of June, which talked about May happenings. So this will go pretty quick. A couple different areas. First, leadership, presence, and public relations. The conference board engagement. So throughout May, the leadership represented APCO across the country, attending state conferences in North Carolina, Colorado, New Mexico, and Michigan. They administered oaths of office while there, some national updates. They also held its quarterly meeting on May 16th at the APCO headquarters. Public outreach was strong this month with 130 traditional media articles, 36 social media mentions, and they say that yields an advertising value of over $1.4 million and a reach of nearly 155 million people. Don't know how that's calculated. Advocacy remains a massive focus with several significant developments on the Hill and with the FCC. 911 reclassifications. They continue to aggressively push for the reclassification of 911 professionals into the protective service occupations. Notably, a House Appropriations Committee report has officially directed the OMB to consider establishing this job code finally. And legislative movement, the Senate passed 988 Lifeline Location Improvement Act to improve location tracking for crisis calls, and Lulu's Law, which allows wireless alerts for shark attacks, has passed both houses and is heading to the president's desk. And then FCC integration, APCO's Chief Technology Officer, Stephen Devine, was selected to participate in the FCC's Communications Security Reliability and Interoperability Council, or CSRIC. Furthermore, APCO joined other public safety groups to support Qualcomm's new 5G device-to-device side-link communications tool. The community is thriving, so total membership grew by over 4,200 members year over year, now at 44,423. Additionally, the APCO Institute launched a new pilot program for streamlined online course bundles and awarded nearly $100,000 in scholarships to 109 members. And then APCO kicked off a joint standards revision with NENA regarding advanced automatic crash notification vehicle emergency data sets. So looking ahead for the conference this year, momentum is building and staying strong for the 2026 in San Antonio. Registration has reached 2,100 attendees with 209 exhibitors. 32 sponsors are locked in right now. And they say this is the highest corporate sponsorship and partnership since 2019. This year, one thing to be on the lookout for APCO International Conference, it's going to go full digital. There will be no printed programs or guides, and all information will be housed in the official mobile app launching later this month. And then for PIO this month, no changes. We'll be continuing to update the website. Look there for the changes for our bylaws. And also as a slight reminder for the state conference, July is the month where early bird pricing does terminate. So if you are going to be registering, register by the end of this month. And you'll get the discount of anywhere from $100 to $150 per attendee. And here's a little note, your agency can pay after the fact. So get registered and they will be invoiced and billed. So we'll work on that. You don't have to have a credit card at registration. It helps, but we do bill agencies.
And no, I don't think he was talking about the state. Manny, do you have anything else for the CAC?
No, Jim just gave the save report, and the only part of it is the commercial side. Our numbers are up about 10% on the commercial side at national, which is really encouraging. So when it comes to that, is everybody here a member of National APCO? And thank you for joining. Yeah, we have a new member. Yes, so everybody is. So the reason I bring that up is you can be on multi-chapters. It's $50 more, and it's an easy process, and it helps the numbers for everybody. So if you're just a member in Los Angeles, and I think, Larry, are you both? Or just one? I think you're both. So Larry is part Southern California and Northern California. It's $50 more to be a member of another chapter. So I encourage that. I'm sorry, what? Oh. Well, maybe we can get Carl there. Well, maybe we can help him. I mean, do you have a contact there? Okay. Yeah, we'll get in the middle of that one. No, so it's really important to do that, to be a member of multi-chapters. So I just wanted to, that's the only thing I have.
Cool, thank you. We'll turn some time over to Carl for finance and budget. membership, and strategic planning.
Thank you, Mike. So first up, finance and budget. The June 30th, end of June, balance from our Wells Fargo account was $252,713.87. That does include about $100,000 in revenue so far from the California APCO conference. Does include about $20,000 that the NorCal chapter has contributed to that conference. Any questions or concerns on that one? Okay, so moving on to the membership report. We do have 7 new members since I last ran this report, which was before Nicole from Zetron signed up. So we've got 1 member from Alameda County Fire Department and 6 from the Placerville Police Department, which makes for 832 members as of July 2nd. Strategic planning, Mike mentioned, nothing significant on the strategic planning effort. We're continuing to execute the action items that we had set forth at the beginning of this year. And then just one note, we will not have frequency coordination meeting this afternoon. There was really nothing significant to talk about or any apps to review. So the next frequency coordination meeting will be August 13th. It'll be Zoom only since there's no chapter meeting in August due to the National APCO Conference.
Thank you, sir. And I was reminded that there's another item that needs to be taken care of. We recently had a board of director resign, just too busy. So we have a director's position that's available right now. If you would like to be a part of the board, let us know. It's a lot of fun. You learn a lot, get to meet some great people. So yeah, please join us and help us out. We'd appreciate it. That's all that I have. Is there anything else from the board that I may have missed? No? Okay. Then 10 minutes. Yes, let's take a 10-minute break. We'll start up again at 10 after. Okay. Alrighty, let's get started again. It's great seeing all the networking going on. It's awesome. So we'll get started here. Today our commercial sponsor is Hyper. And I'm going to turn some time over to Derek Alvarez here, who will present. And we'll go from there. Thank you, Derek.
Thank you very much. Can everybody hear you okay? It's coming through? Very good. Derek Alvarez with Motorola, and we recently, within the last 2 months, have acquired Hyper. Hyper is the non-emergency call agent. We're going to go through some, just a few slides, real quick slides, and then I'm going to actually work into a demo where you guys can see the non-emergency agent actually working. I have 35 years in the public safety space. I've been doing this a little while. So used to be a 911 director in North Florida for about 16 years and have been on the industry side for many years since then. Know a lot of people in the room, so thank you so much for this morning for giving us the time to go through this. I'll jump right into this. Feel free, if you have any questions, to ask me questions. I want this to kind of be interactive. If you have a question, just throw it out there at me. I'm going to keep it real simple, though. The Hyper is a non-emergency call agent using AI to be able to handle the non-emergency calls to take the load off of the dispatchers. So you have a lot of calls that come in that turn into emergency calls, as you well know, but as you also have just everyday nuisance calls, things that people are calling in because they have a complaint against their neighbor or something of that nature. And those are taking time away from the dispatchers to be able to do their job and be able to handle the calls that they need to. So the Hyper agent is a non-emergency agent, and the idea behind it is, well, switch. Just a moment. All right, give me just a moment. Sorry. Had it set up. Okay, here we go. So the idea behind this is really to be able to, as I said, take some of this responsibility off of you guys. And what we're seeing is a significant amount of calls that are coming through, and in most agencies across the United States, it's sometimes double and triple what your normal 911 call volume is. So being able to have that kind of call volume handled by an AI agent and being able to mitigate those calls that are unnecessary for you to be taking on. And what this does is it gives you responses all the way through from being able to handle the call all the way to being able to have that be pushed out to our P1 CAD right this minute. So the PSAPs are understaffed across the United States. We found it to be approximately 4 out of 5 PSAPs are significantly understaffed. And with those numbers, it makes it very difficult to handle the kind of call volumes that a lot of agencies have. So you've got 100,000 calls that are coming into your 911 center, and 75% of those calls are non-emergency calls. That may turn into an emergency call, but you're getting a significant amount of call volume that's coming in from your non-emergency lines. And this is a number that has significantly increased. Just the total call volume into 911 centers has increased 12 to 18% over the last 5 years. So what we have is we have 60% of those, as I said earlier, are typically 911 non-emergency calls. You know, they're coming in as non-emergency calls, and 60% of those are being handled by your dispatchers today, whereas the non-emergency agent is able to actually take that and communicate with them directly and give a true Q&A back and forth, a conversation back and forth to the caller, and we'll do this in just a moment. We'll actually do a call, but being able to have those kind of calls that are coming in where you see approximately 4 of these people are calling in a lost wallet, I've got a bicycle stolen, things of that nature that you're handling on a regular basis. So those are the kind of things that were happening before, and now what we're seeing is the ability to have the agent take care of most of those calls and take that away from the dispatchers. So you're getting actual call that's handled by your AI agent. The idea here is really, if I were to walk into a 911 center today and I were to say, I can work 24/7, I'm fluent in multiple languages, I'm 100% reliable, I'm never going to get sick, I'm never going to put a call on hold, I can handle 100 calls at a time, I can handle 1,000 calls at a time. You're most likely going to hire me, and you're going to look for 20 more of me. So with that, this is the idea behind the non-emergency agent, is to be able to take that kind of situation, and you've got an incoming call, and typically it's routed to your 911. Well, this is going to be routed to the non-emergency agent, and it's going to do a couple things. It's going to listen to the call, and if there's any possibility of life or property damage in any way whatsoever, it's going to transfer that to an emergency to your 911 dispatcher. Otherwise, it's going to handle it based on the SOPs that you put in. This is fully customizable from the standpoint that we'll take in your SOPs, whatever your normal process is for being able to handle that type of call, stolen bicycle, records request, barking dog complaints, transferring things to animal control, things of that nature. So anytime during that call, if that call changes, and I'll show you one of those in just a minute live, anytime that call changes to an emergency call, it's going to immediately transfer that to a 911 dispatcher. So as this works through it, and again, based on what your SOPs are for your 911 center, you're going to have the ability to do that. And then we're going to see resolution logged, summaries created within the application, and if necessary, pushing it all the way out to CAD. Now, keeping in mind that Hyper is a product that Motorola just acquired recently. They are, the Hyper product is completely agnostic to the industry. So any system that you're in, any call handling system that you're on, CAD system that you're on, they're capable of working with those to set that up to be able to push it based on what you need into your CAD system. So if this call were to turn into an emergency call, or if it stays as a non-emergency call and just needs to be logged, it can set it up for whether it's dispatchable or non-dispatchable call. Any questions so far? So what we've seen in numbers, Hyper has seen through these agencies, taking the numbers that they have and being able to reduce those numbers significantly across the board, just in a short amount of time, being able to handle those calls and being able to take the responsibility off of your actual dispatchers and being able to handle those directly through the AI. So with that, I will jump right into what the AI agent looks like. So this is what the AI agent looks like when you first come into it. And these are various campaigns that we have running, and these are various things set up. So if you had multiple agencies, you would see multiple links within that. Otherwise, it's just going to have your agency as a single one. So in this single area, we have the ability to look at this and then see the calls that have come into it, whether they've been completed or there's a call in process. It's going to give you the information about the call, and then there's additional details associated with it. So you can have somebody monitoring this, looking at it, being able to see the type of calls that come in, and then from here, looking actually at the call itself, getting the full transcription of the call. And again, that AI agent is capable of asking questions and going through the process that you would normally have. And if there's any discrepancy, it's going to continue to ask the type of questions that are needed. In addition to that, on the right-hand side, you see the play recording. It's actually capturing the recording from the call. So you're able to listen to the call and see all the different things that are happening within the call. So this call agent's taking the information, and it's going to come through. And what I'll do is I'll generate a call here just real quick, just to show you what we sound like. So
this is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Yes, I need to get a records request, and I'm not exactly sure who I need to talk to, but is there a link or something that you can possibly send me?
Are you asking about how to request police records or a background check?
Yes, that's what I need.
I am connecting you to the records unit. Please hold while I transfer your call.
Thank you. So in that situation, and what we have is, and I'll go back to it and I'll show you what just transpired, and I'm sorry about that. Yeah, I'll do it from over here. It's easier to see. So you see in there that it asks for the, for that particular setup. So you can go back to it. You can see you've got a records unit. It tells you what the type of call was, priority line, online recording, anything that may be transpiring. So based on your SOPs, you can have that send. It can go directly to your records department, transfer it directly to your records department, or it can send them a link to fill out a form. It can be set up in any way that you need it to be, so that it's sending that information to the caller and handling things that you would normally have to be on a phone call for. So having dealt with things like that in the past, those are the type of calls that come in. And then we see the full detail of the call, just as we did before. So I can see the call at how it handled it, and then it tells me that it's transferring the call. So we see all the information behind the call. We're able to listen to the recording, play the recording, and then have that available to you so that you can use that for training purposes if you need to, from the standpoint of you may need to update the SOP in such a way that it handles it a little differently. So if all of a sudden you go from having it transferred directly to an agent, or to an actual call taker within the records department, you can have it send out a URL where they fill out the form online that they need to, and then the records department has the ability to view that, or it sends them to a website, things of that nature. We'll do another one here. The really wonderful thing about this is she never seems to get upset with me. I don't know why.
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Yes, my neighbors are out in their front yard and they're arguing, and I'm not sure what to do about it, but they're out in the front yard and they're arguing, and I'm worried that it's going to turn into something else.
Are they physically fighting, threatening anyone, or are any weapons visible?
Not right this minute, there's not. But they're just like screaming at each other, and people are stopping their cars while they're driving by because it's turned into a big scene in their front yard.
What
Oh, hold
is the
on, man.
address
I'm
where this
sorry.
happened?
Somebody just pulled out a knife. They're now using a knife. I think somebody just got stabbed.
I am connecting you to a 911 call taker. Please hold while I transfer your call.
So we took a call that was a regular, normal, ordinary call where there's a potential fight in progress, and she starts to ask the question, and you'll see where I've interrupted her, and it follows that same line through that. So again, the voice tone change doesn't change at all. You don't get any, it's a constant feed that's listening to every single thing that you're saying and trying its best to understand and going through it. And we're seeing that about 75% of calls that were 911 being handled by 911 agents, and it tells you in here when the call changed, those 911 agents are not having to handle that kind of call to start with. Now this one turned into something, and it immediately transfers them. So if there's any threat to life or property, it's going to immediately give you that information. We'll do another one here real quick. Any questions so far? I got one quick question. All right.
So you have all right. Thank you. So you have a foreign language. Does it transcribe it in English and then continue the conversation?
I'm about to show you that.
Okay.
I know my last name's Alvarez, but I do not speak Spanish. But I'm going to attempt on this particular one just to show you that. Currently, it is there's approximately 30 languages that it's translating into. And since being acquired by Motorola, we have other platforms that are using a larger base to be able to do that kind of translation. It's constantly growing. I mean, within by the end of this year, I imagine that number will be significantly higher on translation. Of course, common languages, Spanish and so forth, Spanish, French, German. Go ahead.
When you said it pushes it into CAD, does it automatically?
Here.
When you say it pushes it to CAD, does it automatically save it in CAD, or does it leave it as a open template for a dispatcher to review and then save? How does that work?
It can do it both ways. It depends on how you want the unit to work. If it's a non-dispatchable, and again, it's going to give you the option to be able to have, if you need to have somebody manually review those before it creates that event, you have that ability to do that. So it can do it both ways, just depending on what your needs are for that. Does that answer your question? Very good. Any others?
This is the non-emergency police line. How can I help?
Mi nombre es Derek.
Hola, soy Sam, asistente de la línea de no emergencia del Departamento de Policía de San Francisco. ¿En qué puedo ayudarle?
I'm sorry, do you actually speak English?
Yes, I speak English. How can I help you today?
Yes, I just wanted to report my neighbor's dog is barking and it's just creating a nuisance. Can you transfer me to like animal control? Now, this is real important right here. What you just heard was the typing. Okay? Now, there's a reason for that, because we all know that if there's a pause on the line and you've heard it, they'll hang up on it. But what happens here is we're actually inputting that so that it gives you a psychological feeling that somebody's doing work for you. So in this situation, I called in. Yes, I speak terrible Spanish, but it recognized the language, and then it also put that into a situation where you can see the language as you were asking. You can see that it speaks it. It gives me both what's being spoken in Spanish and what's being spoken in English. So the dispatcher is able to see that, read that. You're able to look at that log at any time in progress while that call was going on. We're actually seeing that being logged. And then, as I said, you can go back and listen to the recording and have that be something that you have available to you at a later time. So that gives you a quick idea of what we do with Hyper. It has the ability within your SOPs to be able to transfer out to other agencies, to be able, for example, having a call that comes in and you need it to go to your records department. It can automatically send that over to the records department, send that call over to the records department. It can handle it from animal control, or somebody needs to just do a basic records request and they want to have those links sent to them. You have the ability quick and easily to have this agent handle those calls for you. We good? So it can handle those calls for you and be able to work through those quickly and easily for you. And the idea is to attempt to take about 75% of the load off of you, so you're not doing this daily work and your dispatchers aren't getting off one immediate call that was very stressful, going into, I think I dropped my wallet in the Walmart parking lot. Okay, why are you calling me? Have you looked around your car? No, we don't do that. But that's the kind of thing. So go ahead, you had a question?
So for when it goes into CAD and we want to save, is there a way for searches in the future, if it is a CAD call for service created, we could label it to where we can find it, like with the event number?
It does it within the analytics side of it. So the analytics side, great lead into the analytics, but the analytics side actually gives us what happened during the calls, the type of calls that came in, and then any of the, if it was handled or if it was transferred internally. If somebody calls in and says, I need to speak to Sergeant Smith, that doesn't need to be a CAD incident. So it gets transferred out to that. If there's any early disconnect, somebody hangs up, they don't feel like they're getting it, or they just simply get to a point where they don't need to talk to 911 anymore, or whoever they're attempting to call. So anything that's resolved, you have the analytics within there. As if it pushes it out to CAD, you would have that in the analytics part, and then be able to see that.
And last question is there now or any talk of creating some type of status callback feature? So let's say a call for service is created for a non-emergency call and it has to pen for a while, and will the system automatically call them back and give them a status, like it's still pending, if you want to continue to wait, press 1 or whatever?
Well, it's not set up in such a way that it's like a phone tree to press 1 for such and such. It's handling the call as you're talking to it. So typically it's going to go through and it's going to resolve the call one way or another, either to transfer the call out based on whatever your SOPs are. But in most cases, it's going to handle that call without there isn't going to be a pending situation. Because again, it's not putting anybody on hold.
Okay, so let's say it's a call for service that's created, that's a dispatchable call, but it's going to be a while before it's dispatched. So let's say it's been on my screen for like an hour. Is there a feature that'll do an automatic callback to the caller and let them know it's still pending and offer them an option?
That's a great question, and Jamie, if you'll write that one down for me, I'll be sure to get an answer for the group on that one. That one I'm not. I don't think that it's currently set up for that. There's a possibility that it could, that it could generate that, but I'm not certain of that one. That's a great question, because typically that would go through your normal call handling process.
Right.
Any other questions, anyone? Oh, see you in the back. Yes, sir.
This is just a curiosity. That last call that you did where you kind of, I think you said poison control and then you changed your mind to animal control. my guess is there was one of two things that was going to happen next. It was either going to ask you for confirmation if you wanted to go to animal control and then send you there, or it was just going to take the last thing you said and send it there. Is there a way to, like in your analytics, go back and see what was it about to do before you, even though the call ended, what was the action that was going to be taken?
By pulling up the analytics, there is a feature within there to show that, and this is all demo stuff, so it's not going to give us the actuals that we would normally see. But yeah, there is a way to go back in there and look at what the process was. Typically, it's not like if you said animal control, it's going to give you that chick 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 chick, sound for a second, and then if you immediately change, as that call was going through, you can see how it's transitioning, and it also scripts it so that you see what that is, and I'll show you where that particular one. So we have the call, and then it says subject, subject changed from disturbance. Same thing's going to happen in there. You're going to be able to see that sort of delineation in it, and it's going to pick it up. It's making decisions, as quickly as possible, but it's also waiting for that next. It's not using keywords. So if I were to just say gun, it's going to ask, questions regarding that and start drilling down into what the nature of the report is you're trying to, the call is all about. And if you say that shots are being fired, or for example, I just did one yesterday where it's there's fireworks going off and it's 3 days after the 4th of July, but they're still shooting off fireworks at 2 o'clock. And it's going to go through this process of asking these questions, are you calling in a disturbance about fireworks? All the way to the point where I say, the fireworks have landed in my yard. Now my yard's on fire. It immediately transfers to a 911 dispatcher, because I went from something that was non-emergency to something that was an emergency. And you'll see that change in there in the summary of this. Any other questions? I think you had one. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious, how it handles calls where, say, for instance, a domestic violence call. So they makes that initial 911 call. They maybe get a word out, then the call gets cut off. You don't know what is going on. How does this process that? I mean, is there a response via the PDE for a welfare check to that address, or are we kind of basing it off certain words before it actually sends anything to 911?
If the call is interrupted, or if the call is discontinued before it gets a chance to transfer it, then they'll have the information available within their call handling to be able to make that call back. Okay. So if there is, as I said, as it transitions through that, it's constantly just listening to utterances instead of looking at keywords. It's listening to a certain number of words before it formulates what its next step is. And if you call in and there's a domestic, and your SOPs say, domestic immediately transfers to a 911 call taker, then that's what it's going to do. If the call, if it's a neighbor calling about, somebody, then it's a different situation. It's going to go through the question and answers that it needs to, just like you would on your call. If you were handling the call yourself, it's going to go through that same process based on what your SOPs are. That answer your question?
It does. I just wonder, I know in the past when 911 gets called that there's no response or audio coming from that person making that call, they will sometimes dispatch somebody to that address just to make sure.
What would happen in a situation is if there's silence on the line, it's going to continue to ask questions.
Okay.
And then if it doesn't get a response, it'll transfer it to 911 if that's what your SOPs are set up for.
Okay. Okay.
So if there's no voice on the line whatsoever, it's going to keep asking that type of question. Go ahead.
So a follow-up to that, what does the call flow does the dispatch center hear a phone ring, or is this all handled behind the scenes until it
Great question.
processes the call and then passes through?
So it's set up on a DID. So whatever admin line you have, it's going to be a DID that takes it directly into Hyper. So that's going to happen without, you may see it registered like as a, in your call queue that Hyper's taken over it. You can have it, that depends on your call handling solution. But it's immediately going to just take those calls straight into Hyper. And then if it needs to, transfer them back. So it's a DID that is taking, and it can, as I said, it can handle 100 calls a minute or 1,000 calls. Yes, sir.
And along the line of his previous question there was if that situation happens where maybe all they said was help and then, line is silent afterward and it gets sent to 911. Maybe you already said this, I'm sorry, but does the dispatcher get all this information passed along forwarded to them, or at the very least can play back that recording to see?
They would be able to see this if they have. So again, it's very, it's set up based on a user permissions base, but you could have your dispatcher have this available to them on their screen so they can just play back what the call was. And they'll also see that transcription and translation right in this in front of them, just like you would if, within your call handling solution. Does that help? Any other questions? All right, very good. Thank you so much for your time today. I appreciate it. And if you have any questions, feel free to follow up with Jamie, and she can handle those for you. And we will definitely get that question for you that you asked and get it out to the group.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you, Derek. And why don't we take another 15-minute break so we can get Mandy all set up. Start up again at 11.
Test.
All righty, everybody, let's get started. All righty, we'll get started here. Our keynote speaker is Mandy Montalvo. She's a member of our board and a great person. She's been doing this since she's 18.
Not quite, but close.
And just a reminder, if you have any questions for her during her presentation or afterwards, please wait for the microphone. You know, we are live streaming this, so. Mandy, it's all yours.
Thanks. Good morning, everybody. Or I guess we're almost to afternoon. I really appreciate all of you being here today. This is a presentation I generally do at conferences, so I'm really excited to kind of do it for this group as well. It is a lot to cover. There's a lot of speakers out there that will talk about one specific thing like culture or staffing or recruitment. And this presentation kind of takes you from start to finish. So it's a really high level overview. So if you do have questions, I do have some built-in time at the end if you want to kind of save them for then. But we're going to go through a lot of information at a really high level today, and we can kind of dig in a little deeper a little later. So this presentation is from Hire to Retire, winning the battle on dispatcher turnover. I think, let's take a survey. I mean, there's only a couple of centers in here, but how many of you work or are associated with centers that are fully staffed, no vacancies? All right, that's nobody. Well, that is a common problem amongst our industry. So today we're going to talk about some practical strategies on improving recruitment, retention in our centers, but also learning how to attract like the right candidates and what we're doing to support those people through their entire career into retirement. Hopefully by the end of the session, you'll have a little bit of better understanding of some of the challenges and opportunities in recruiting qualified dispatchers, learning some strategies to improve our retention rates, and also developing a plan for any strategies that you could use in your own centers. So let's talk about the staffing challenge. It is something that all of our centers have at one time or are still suffering from. Each year, Nina and Carbine come together to do a pulse check of 911, and so they put out a survey. This year's results of that survey have not been published yet, so we're kind of still going off of last year's, but out of almost 1,400 respondents to their survey, 75% of those centers had vacancies, and 58% of those centers were reporting that they struggled to staff those. So we're seeing it nationwide. There's a problem that we have with hiring good quality people who can make it through our really intense training programs and then stay on the job for a longer period of time and on to retirement. So the turnover, some of the contributing factors to our high turnover and burnout rates are the understaffing, but also stress, work schedules, finding that home life balance, overtime, and pay versus cost of living. What we're seeing a lot, especially I think in California the most, is that cost of living is pretty high, and it's hard to live in the same community that you serve. So not only are they working long hours, they're working overtime, but now they are also adding more time into their drive to and from work because they have to live outside of their area to afford it. So some of the things that are contributing to our staffing challenges. And then staffing also impacts our performance, our morale, the culture that we're building, and public safety just in general. If you have dispatchers and call takers who are taxed, the quality of service they're providing our community is degraded. And also then what is also the support they're giving to our officers or firefighters, EMS personnel in the field. So we start with recruiting, and it's really about recruiting the right people for the job, right? I don't know about any of the other centers in this room, but when I post an entry-level dispatcher recruitment, I'll get 300 to 400 applicants. Well, that's a lot of people to pick from if you have a couple of vacancies, but are they the right people for this job? So for entry-level, those minimum qualifications are pretty basic. It doesn't mean that the dispatch is the right place for them. So When I start recruiting, I'm looking more for targeting the traits, not just their resumes, not just the experience that they've had out in the world, but what are the traits that I need to support the culture I'm trying to build in my center. So, and sometimes that can be hard to vocalize, because for people who've been doing this job for 15, 20 years, it's just kind of something you know when you see it, right? You've got recruiters or you've got managers or supervisors who are part of your recruitment team. And as they do their interviews, they're looking at it going, I just feel it. I feel like this person would be a great fit for our organization. I think they could do the job. But it's hard to sometimes put those things into a list of what are those traits? What are the things that we're looking for? So some of the basics, obviously, we're looking for people. The skill set is multitasking, attention to detail, communication skills, memory, recall. And if you use any sort of pre-hire assessment testing, whether it's critical or post-test, a lot of those traits are going to be washed out in that testing. But some of the non-tangibles, like long-term impact on culture, morale, and retention, are traits like empathy, resiliency, emotional intelligence, interpersonal communication skills, and integrity. And sometimes those things are a little bit harder to kind of find in an interview. So if you are able to work with your recruitment team or with HR, whoever is kind of facilitating your hiring process, work on questions, look for questions in your interviews that will address some of those things. And you'll get a little bit better of a peek behind the scenes of what that person is really like, not just the skills they might bring to your center. Using realistic job previews in your recruitment process, encourage people who are applying to come do sit-alongs, right? It's not just an important thing of whether they're a fit for our organization, but are we a fit for them too? This is a relationship that we're gonna enter into. And so they need to see what they might be getting themselves into. I've been in this line of work for 22 years now. I am not savvy in the social media aspect of things, but I have a lot of people who work in my center that are. So if you have that at your center, talk to the ones who are like to do TikTok videos or Instagram reels or whatever it is, but give people a peek into what a day in the life of a dispatcher really looks like. I think some of the things, we've talked to people who have come into this job and they're like, well, I watched a lot of YouTube videos, and I don't know the sources for those YouTube videos. Or I'll watch TV shows and things like that. And sometimes those are obviously dramatized for entertainment purposes. So this gives them a little bit better of a realistic view into what the job is really like. So we do encourage sit-alongs. Some organizations I know make them mandatory as part of the hiring process, so that is an option that you can look at. We also have what we call a question and answer session. So every recruitment, once the individuals have passed a critical, we invite them to a Q&A session. It's usually about a 2-hour session, and it's an opportunity for our dispatchers they put a presentation together of what it's like to work here. We talk about the benefits of working here. We also talk about some of the pitfalls of the job, like you're gonna work holidays, you're gonna work weekends, this is a 24/7 operation, so there's overtime, but really giving them all the information for them to make a good decision on whether this is the right fit for them. So we do those. We get a lot of feedback from people that attend those. We also invite our Professional Standards Bureau to those Q&A sessions. So there's usually a lot of questions about what does a background check look like? What are some of the things that are automatic disqualifiers? Well, that's hard for us to answer because we don't do the backgrounds. But we invite somebody who does and who can answer some of those more intricate questions. But we also have HR come so they can answer questions about benefits and retirement and the things that we know of because we have them, but we're not well versed in those processes. So it usually helps determine for those people, do I want to continue on in the process? Do I want to come to the next interview? Or maybe this job isn't something that I'm interested in. So it helps us kind of narrow down the field even more. And then obviously we're marketing our mission and not just the job, right? Why do we do what we do? What are we here for? What is the benefit? What are we offering? What's our commitment to each other and to our community? So that's important for somebody to hear from early on, because that's the message we're going to continue to replay for them as they join our team, as they build their career with us. So with guidance, if you don't have a mission and vision that's specific for your center, because a lot of organizations have an overarching mission and vision. If you don't have a mission and vision that's specific to what you do in dispatch, it is a great opportunity to have your teams, with some guidance, obviously, come together and build that out. right? Because it's theirs now. They own it. So there's more buy-in to that mission and vision than a mission and vision that was provided to them by the organization. So, and my recommendation is short and sweet. It doesn't need to be anything long. Make it something that's easy for them to remember and regurgitate to each other, right? Or something that they can quickly bring to mind. Faster, smarter hiring. This might be something that is out of the hands of some of our, some people in their organizations, because HR does build a lot of that hiring process. And so there's some rules and regulations we have to follow in that. But if you can simplify application and testing, you definitely should. Some of the things that you can do, a lot of organizations are already using online applications, whether it's government jobs or Cal Ops, but someplace where applicants can go and build one resume and apply to multiple organizations. It makes it easier for the applicant and also for the organization. Testing, if you don't use something like Critical or a post-battery test, however you're assessing them, consider when you do use like Critical, it is an online option, so consider letting them do the test online at home. I know it's harder to vet out whether they're the one who's actually taking the test, but it's a lot of effort if they're going to find somebody who's going to take that test for them. Well, and you'll know pretty quickly if they actually took the test or not. So we do allow them, because there is so many applicants. It's the second step in our hiring process. So once we have applicants that meet the MQs, we send 300 people a link to take this test. Half of them won't ever even open it. The other half will open it, some will finish, some won't, and then the ones, it actually will dwindle down to about 10% of people who will pass that. And so those are the people that we then invite to Q&A sessions and interviews past that. Shortening that time to hire, see if your department will do internal background investigations if they don't. Obviously, if it's an internal, you have an opportunity to kind of control the timeline or be involved and push them along or tell them how important it is. Third parties, they usually have a contract, so it's like, well, our contract says we have to get it done within 90 days or 120 days, and they'll take all of that time. But if you have the opportunity to do internal backgrounds, you have a little bit more control and a little more pull when it's like, hey, I really need this person to get through, I need this done, kind of a thing. And build relationships with your human resources. I can't tell you some of the most valuable relationships I have in my organization are with HR. It's not just during this hiring and recruitment, but it's also during personnel matters and things like that. It's a lot easier to keep the wheels moving in this process when you have a good relationship with them. Keep your applicants engaged throughout the process. Encourage them to come and do sit-alongs throughout the process. They don't have to just do one. Maybe the first one they came to, there wasn't anything going on. Encourage them to keep coming. If they have schedule openings, come and do sit-alongs during the process before you get hired. I have no problem giving people my contact information, email or a work phone, so that they can ask questions along the way. For most people, this is their first time experiencing this long of a hiring process, and sometimes that's discouraging. They get lost, they're like, I haven't heard from anybody in weeks, right? And we try and set the expectation, this is gonna be a long time, but sometimes questions will pop up and they don't know who to contact. Give them your contact information, keep them engaged throughout the process. And then applicants should be able, like I said, to do multiple sit-alongs. The more exposure that they're gonna get in the center, the more committed they are on day one. That, or they're gonna save you the time of going through the background, because they're gonna figure out, like, maybe this isn't what I wanna do. So moving on, we'll talk about onboarding that retains. So structured onboarding. I don't know that I've had a job that had more chaotic onboarding processes than this one. And I've worked for a few different agencies, but I think if you can kind of hone in and structure your onboarding process, that gives the applicant, the new hire coming in, more confidence that what they're getting into is something that is structured and there's not all over the place. Because as it stands, your training is going to be all over the place, right? You're going to be with one trainer, and then you're going to go to another shift and work with another trainer, and there's some flexibility that happens in there. But if you can provide them with some structure from the beginning, it's a little bit more helpful for them. Some of those, once you have a hire date, some of those things look like sending out welcome emails prior to them actually starting, giving them an outline of the first 3 to 4 weeks of their schedule and the job and what that looks like for them. You know, telling them when the shift starts, who to call if they're running late or are ill, and also covering your dress code, because there's nothing worse than having somebody show up completely out of dress code on the first day of work. So share with them all of those initial expectations for the first day and a few weeks. Something that we do a little bit differently is on the very first day, the training supervisor and I take the new hire or new hires, if we have multiple, to lunch. It's something simple that we can do, but there's a experience that you share having a meal with someone that kind of brings a little bit more connection. It's an opportunity for us to talk about who we are as people, but also as well as the organization, but just to get to know the new hires a little bit more. Tell us about your family, tell us about where you come from, right? And sharing a meal kind of makes it a little bit more connected. So. Peer mentors, super important. How many people had a peer mentor when they started doing the job they're currently doing, especially in a high stress environment? We encourage people who are either just out of training or maybe who just finished probation to mentor some of the newer people that are coming in, because they are much closer to the struggles of a trainee going through the process than, say, a supervisor who's been doing the job for 15 years or a manager who's been doing the job for 20 years. It's hard to think back to what it was like on the first few days, first few weeks of this new job. So we encourage our newest trainees or our newest employees that have finished training and are maybe off probation to mentor the newer hires that are coming on. And if you're hiring multiples, like I know a lot of agencies, if they have the opportunity to do a big class, if they have multiple people that they're hiring at the same time for an academy or things like that, encourage them to lean on each other. It's an experience that no one else is going through but them. So it's a great support system. Our last large group, they had a group text where they would talk to each other and be like, oh man, I really struggled today. And then you have 4 or 5 other people going, stay with it, you're doing fine, you're gonna do it, you're gonna make it through, and they become cheerleaders for each other. Culture of support and inclusion. For those of us who started many, many years ago, I had trainers who said, I don't know your name until you know how to do this job. You know, you have to be off probation. You have to complete training before we even want to know who you are. We don't have a culture of that anymore. We start with support and inclusion from day one, right? Everybody, the success of our organization is based on how well we support each other and keep moving forward. So that's super important when you're bringing new people on, is to make room for that. We don't have room or mentality for the prove yourself theories anymore. We're here to support you and help you move through the process, every single one of us. So culture, this could be a whole day of conversation in and of itself. So I'm just gonna briefly go over the importance of this. Culture really is everything. It's the respect, the recognition, the transparency from all levels. The way that I explain culture to my team is it's a garden, right? When I started as a manager 5.5 years ago, our garden needed some tending. We had some weeds, we weren't fertilizing properly, we weren't watering on time. So we needed to clean up our garden, and as we started to make incremental changes in what we were doing, the weeds found their way out, or they became flowers, one or the other. But it's something that is not a set it and forget it. You don't fix culture and then let it be. It is a garden. You're gonna have to continue to tend it in a way that keeps it healthy and growing in the right direction. So where do we start as leaders in our organization? It's with listening. I spend a lot of time, probably need to do it a little bit more now because things have been distracting, but I spend a lot of time with the shifts that are working and just listening. Tell me what's going on. Tell me some of the pain points that you have. What are some things that we can fix? It starts there with building the trust that your people will come to you when they have some struggles or they want to improve something. This allows the dispatchers to be heard and part of the decision-making process. When it's their decision, it's harder not to buy into it. So even if their idea or plan doesn't work or isn't going to work within the parameters that we have, help them brainstorm how we can get it into the parameters, how it can work based on our budget or based on our scheduling or based on some of the things that might be hindering it. With culture, I think that the helping the dispatchers feel valued is that listening. It's getting them involved. We have dispatchers started a best practices committee. So they meet once a month and they talk about some of the things that are going on. They put out a newsletter, but this is all something that they did on their own. It wasn't something that was handed to them. It wasn't an assignment that was given to them. It was something that they saw a need for, and they went ahead and did it. It cost us nothing but time, and I'm happy to support all of that for them. So culture, it's a bumpy road. It's going to take some time. It really helps when your leadership is open and transparent with changes and things that are going on. Failure is something that is hard for dispatchers to accept, right? Because we want to do everything well the first time. But failure is not the opposite of success. It's actually part of success. It's where we learn the most. It's how we change the things that we need to change and move forward stronger in the end. So good leaders know that they don't know everything, and they're comfortable admitting when they're wrong. And that definitely helps build that trust and then enhances your culture. So like I said, this could be talked about all day. Another thing about retention and keeping the good is how do we help the mental health component of our job. New dispatch, this is a new concept for a lot of dispatch centers. It hasn't been something that we talk about a lot, except it's kind of come up in the last like 5 to 7 years. There are obviously some progressive agencies out there who have been talking about wellness and mental health for a lot longer than that. But for most of us, it is more of a new concept. We have some common resources, like what resources do we have? So a lot of our agencies offer EAP, peer support. There are some app-based resources like Mindbase or Firstgevity, things that you can put in place for no cost or relatively low cost that helps your dispatchers pay attention to their mental health. And we have to start normalizing taking care of ourselves. You know, in the past it was, this is your job, you know, you have to be available for overtime, you're kind of, I don't know, for a period of time I felt married to the job, where it took a lot of my time. I felt like I was obligated to be there all the time, and I wasn't taking care of myself when I was away from the job. And so we really have to start talking about that early on in the career, so it's something that's normal for new people that are joining this here. So not everything has to cost money, but those that do cost money can be justified with less time off of the job. Right? Less workers' comp cases, less time where they're calling off sick, things like that. If we're encouraging them to take care of themselves and take care of their mental health and their wellness, then we'll have less of those sick calls, less of the overtime. So we can justify on the financial side of things that we are preventing some of those things. Look for ways to support that healthy work-home life balance, encourage self-care when they're away from the job. I try to work with my upper management. I encourage anybody else to, and people who make budgetary decisions, to see if there's room to do more. I mean, the worst that somebody's going to tell you when you ask for these extra resources is no. So, something else to consider when talking about retention is career growth. It matters, especially for people who are coming into this job now. When I started 22 years ago, I had to work till I was 55, and that felt like so long. But now I've got people who are coming into this job at 20, 21 years old who have to work until they're 62. How do we keep them healthy? How do we keep them engaged? How do we keep them wanting to and having a passion for this job? So the career growth, coaching, mentoring, getting to know your people, understanding what their goals are. If you have people who are saying, yeah, I want to be a leader, I want to be a CTO, I want to be a tactical instructor, I want to be a supervisor or a manager one day. Pour into those people, get them to the trainings that they need, help them see the finish lines, help them see those progression of their career, because it will help keep them engaged and moving in the right direction, and hopefully with your agency. Obviously we have people who start one place, move to other places, but hopefully that is something that with all the other things we've talked about, culture and wellness and some of those things, it will keep them at your organization. Share your career path. Talk about how you got to where you are. Talk about all the pits and the peaks of getting to a supervisor position or a manager position. And just kind of help the staff see that future, not just a job. And learning from turnover. This is also where some of those listening tours or checking in with your people is going to help you either retain people, but if you do have people that are leaving, it is the natural progression of the job. We do have turnover. We do have people who are going to leave for other opportunities, not necessarily just in dispatch, but exit interviews are key to understanding why they're going. Are they leaving because they want to go back and get an education because they've always wanted to be a nurse, or they've always wanted to be something else and now they're going to take the opportunity to do it? Okay. Are they leaving because, you know, hey, family situations have changed and we're moving to another location, so I can't stay here? Okay. But if there's places where it's like, yeah, I'm leaving because I want to work at another agency. I want to see if there's a place that's has nicer people or a better culture. Well, you have to take those, yeah, more money, live closer to home. Those are all things that you want to consider. Even if you can't do anything about them right now, that information is invaluable for when you're trying to make decisions in the future, right? Sometimes you can't control the money part, right? But you can have conversations with the people who set the budget, who set the salaries, and say, listen, maybe we need to start comparing ourselves to this agency over here. They're stealing a lot of our people because they pay more, right? So some things that you can do, but take that information and actually do something with that feedback, especially if it's internal. If they're talking about things that are going wrong in the center, if they're having some issues with interpersonal relationships or some, you know, a cultural issue, you have to actually act on those things. Don't just say, oh, okay, thanks for your time, and move on with it. Actually fix those. And hopefully you can avoid some of these exit interviews by checking in on a regular basis, by addressing issues before they become so big that someone's willing to leave. And then praise the work that is being done. Celebrate what is working in your center, because people want to hear, you know, how can I do better? But they also want to hear where they're doing great things. Having that balance of praising good work and also how to improve is going to help keep them balanced in the position. And then, let's see, some innovative approaches that we've used or I've seen other agencies use is, you know, shift bidding, hybrid roles, extra days off, if you can work that into your schedule. When I first started with Elk Grove, we were on 12-hour shifts, and that is kind of taxing because if you're already working at 12 and there's a sick call off, now you're working a 16-hour shift. And for people who don't live local, now they're driving home an hour each direction, their sleep is compromised, their safety is compromised. Our officers have always been on a 10-hour shift model, and so about a year and a half ago, well, longer than that we started talking about it, but a year and a half ago, we moved the dispatch staff to 10-hour shifts as well. In the very beginning, people were like, no, I hate it, I don't want to do it. I'm not, if we go to 10 hours, I'm quitting. Right? And even talking about all the positives and the things that would come from going to a 10-hour shift model, they just didn't, they were like, I don't want to drive down here 2 more days a month, right? Because at the time they were working 3 on, 4 off, and then 4 on, 3 off, and they were like, I don't want to give up that extra day off. But I will say, after being on 10s, I have never heard more praise for a shift. They are getting more time back in their day. They are home if they have children and they want to be home in the evenings for homework and dinners and bath times. Now they're getting off at 4 o'clock in the afternoon versus 6 p.m. They're home to be with their families. Graveyard shifts don't start until 9 p.m., so that means that they also have time to be with their families before coming in or handling the business that they need to handle. Having an overlap day on a Wednesday allows us to provide better training, also some more wellness components. So if you have the ability to look at your shifts and look at where areas that you could help with those things, then do it. I know that that's a little bit harder because that means that you have to have certain numbers of people to maintain that shift. You also have to have support from your executive teams and things like that. So it is a little bit of a change, but it is something that you could look into. And then, so we also have what we kind of call a hybrid role. Some of our dispatchers are trained as DFR pilots. We have a real-time information center. So we've also trained a few of our dispatchers to be operators in the real-time center. And this gets them out from underneath the headset. They're still working. They're still bringing value to the organization, but they're getting an opportunity to see all of the other things that are available to them instead of just coming to the console, answering 911 calls, dispatching units over the radio. Now they're able to kind of see some of the other components that make public safety work. So, let's see. Community partnerships. If you have the ability, try and get your dispatchers out of the center for different events. Get them into the communities that they serve, whether that's 911 for kid opportunities, safety days, barbecues, trunk or treats, National Night Out. That's coming up next month. It's a great opportunity for your dispatchers to be out with the street response, the people on the street, and patrol or fire, and go out and actually talk to the community and see, interface with them. It gets them away from the console, and you have a little bit more of a less compassion fatigue when you're seeing the people that you're serving. So send them to recruiting events. Send the right ones. You know the ones. Send the right ones to recruiting events. You'll know who they are. Check into wellness stipends. Sometimes it's not something that your department's going to pay for, but maybe there's a gym in your town that will offer discounted memberships. A lot of your community businesses are willing to offer discounted rates to certain things. And like I said, it doesn't have to cost a ton of money. See if there's chiropractors or massage therapists in your town that would be willing to come to an event and, you know, provide some massages. Every year during open enrollment, we have a benefits fair. So if you have a benefits fair, see if they'll bring like a local masseuse or a chiropractor who will, you know, do little 10-minute massages for your people that are going through the benefits fair and learning about AFLAC and the healthcare and the new dental programs and stuff like that, because it'll give them an opportunity to see what else is out there that they can use maybe their FSA funds for, or things that they are invested in. So wellness apps as well, Cortico, Mindbase, some of those things are already available to you. Encourage your dispatchers to use them. And like, again, if you don't get what you don't ask for. So the worst answer you're going to hear is no. Ask for the world. So the most important part, reaching retirement. How does everything we've talked about today help us get to a dispatcher to retirement? I know there's a lot of studies out there, and there's surveys that say, like, what percentage of dispatchers actually make it to retirement? I know there's this 3% number that rolls out there. I don't know how accurate that is. I've never actually done a study, but it's a rare occasion that you have someone who has worked in the career for 20 or 30 years and makes it to retirement. So celebrate the ones that you do have that are making it, but how do we use everything that we've talked about, all the components we've talked about today, to help the people who are 20, 22, 25? How do we help them get all the way to retirement? It does start with implementing some of the things we've talked about today, but also bring retirement into the conversation early. I know that they talk about it with HR when they get hired and they fill out all the paperwork and they put their beneficiaries down and everything, but after that, it's like, oh, I forget about it, right? I see the money go out of my check, it goes into my CalPERS, and but I don't think about it. Nobody talked to me when I was a brand new dispatcher about a 457 or a 401 or any of those additional things that I could put money into. This job is probably, especially for somebody who's coming to us as an entry-level candidate, this is probably the most money they've ever seen in their career at that point. So what they're not missing, tell them to invest that. They're not gonna know it was even there. So start talking about the 457. If you don't have the knowledge, then point them to HR, point them to the resources, and tell them how important it is to consider this at a young age, because what they're gonna invest in their 20s is going to grow exponentially, so that maybe they don't have to work until they're 62. Maybe they can retire early with the other investments that they've done. Also, educate your dispatchers on what 2% at 62 means. Most people look at it and they go, I don't even know, what does that mean? How much money am I gonna get? Well, help walk them through the formula. And if you don't know, then find somebody who does know what that means and how that formula works, so that they can better understand what they're looking at for retirement. And then that will also maybe help them motivate them to invest early in a 457. Little bit about career phases. Help them see the long game. So years 0 to 2, that's survival and skill building mode, right? We're just trying to make it through. no expectation of the fact that you're going to make this a career, but this is a place where that passion starts to build, right? Years 3 through 10, growth and confidence. This is where they're getting more training, they're taking on additional roles, they're learning more about the intricacies of policy and procedure and things like that. And then 10 through 20, mastery and mentorship. And anything past 20 years is building a legacy and being a leader in your organization. So these are, you can break it down into smaller bite-sized pieces, so they're not going, I have to work 42 years, right? Just take it a little bit at a time and understand what each phase is, and maybe some of the pitfalls or some of the high points of those different seasons of the job. So that will help them better understand what they're coming up to. There's nothing scarier than that 7-year itch where you're like, I've been doing this job for 7 years, but I don't know if this is what I really want to do, but that's kind of the pivotal point. If I'm going to make a career change, I got to do it now. And if they better understand what is going on in those years, then they might have a better way of getting like, okay, if I can just get past year 10, then I'm going to really be good. I'm going to be in the mastery phase. You know, I'm going to help other people come up to this level, kind of a thing. And so it gives them something to kind of work towards. Yeah. So, call to action, start small. I know there was a lot of things talked about today. Like I said, I could probably talk all day in depth about some of the things that were on these slides. But start small, pick one change. Don't try and overload yourself. Plus, if you're trying to do too much, it's really hard to maintain. It's also hard to measure if it was successful or not. If you're implementing too many changes at one time, you don't really know, is that the thing that didn't work? Or is that the thing that is working and this one's not working? So start small. Make one change at a time and see how it's going. Go back and decide where your greatest challenge lies and make that one change to help improve that. Start there. And also find your greatest strengths in your people and your organization and celebrate that along the way. So build trust, value your people, and be the center that your people don't want to leave. Send them off to conferences, and when they hear somebody else complaining about the schedule that they work or how much overtime they work or how there's no pay or the benefits are bad, make them recruiters. Come work at my agency. It's great. We've got all these things. I love it there. Right? That's the goal, is that when you're not around, that they're out spreading the good word of what your center is doing. Okay. What you're doing matters. Keep going, even when it's really hard. I have to say that the last 5.5 years, I've only been a manager for 5.5 years, but I've been in the dispatch world for 22 years. The last 5.5 years have been the hardest of my entire career, but also the most rewarding. I've seen the changes that have happened with my people, and it's been their work. It's not really my work. I was just there to kind of keep them in the, in the middle, so that there aren't, keep them on track, keep them going, clearing the tracks for them to do the job that they were intended to do. So keep going. It does feel cumbersome at times. It does feel overwhelming at times, but keep going. And some changes will need financial support, but many only cost time and effort. Any questions? Oh, we have some extra time. Yeah. Sorry, I talked really fast.
No,
Normally this takes me a little longer.
This has actually been pretty amazing, and this is great insight for us, especially the vendors on our side of the house. I have a unique situation where I go across the whole United States, and I get to go to many shows, both nationally and local as well. And for the last 5 years, my favorite question to ask dispatchers and users and call takers is, how long you been there? And also, it's interesting that their answer has been always 1 to 5 years, or they're brand new, but then there's this weird jump, 10 years to 20 plus. Mm-hmm. So out of curiosity, this is one of 2 questions, by the way. Have you guys gone back and researched why there's such a weird jump between that 5 to 10 years? And what your little listing that was just 2 slides back was pretty cool and pretty enlightening about, where they are, maybe why they're getting burned out and stuff. That one. Yeah. And then on the second question is, you guys usually do, a lot of folks do signing bonuses and referrals. Over half of the folks I talk to have worked at a previous dispatch center and have just moved over, or they're on their 3rd center. Yeah. That's very interesting too as well.
Yeah, so to your first question, I'm not an expert in the actual turnover and some of the things that drive that particular gap. But if we even just look at what this shows, years 3 to 10 are growth and confidence, right? And that can be places where people get stagnant, right? Or if they're not feeling as supported in their organization, it's hard to grow and it's hard to build that confidence. So that, like, we call it the 7-year itch, just like, you know, people talk about in relationships and things like that, because it does tend to happen at that time, right? In that window of 3 to 10 years, somewhere in there, people are going, I don't know if this is the center for me. I don't know if this is the job for me. So there's a lot of existential crisis questions that happen at that age of your career in dispatch, right? Because the first 2 years, you're just trying to keep above water, you know, survival, right? And then you get through that stage, and then you're like, okay, well, now what do I do? And then that's where all the opportunities come to learn more skills, to go to training, to take on some more responsibility, to grow not only in the role, but as a person. And sometimes those things don't all marry up. So, I mean, that's my theory. The second question was, signing bonuses. So we have used them and we haven't used them. Sometimes it's hard to get your organization to see the value in a signing bonus. Oftentimes I usually bring in like other organizations, like, look, they're offering $20,000, you know, and they'll pay it over 4 years because that's how they increase longevity, right? They want people to stay that 4 years to collect the whole thing. At one point I did have, I think the most I had was a $12,500 signing bonus that was paid in half. So you got one payment when you first started, and then once you completed probation, you got the other. It worked for a little bit, but I didn't see a huge increase and it was only offered to laterals, right? Because we were looking for people who had experience. We don't offer that signing bonus to entry-level applicants. So,
Can you share the slide about the recruiting and the questions and things like that we should be looking for? Can you send that out?
Yeah, this will be on there, but I can get you some more information on like my notes and things like that, on like the traits.
Our issue. We get people in that just aren't suited, and we tell them at the end of the interviews, you know, go in for a sit along, and only maybe 20%. And HR said we can't make it a requirement.
Yeah.
But we need to make it a requirement because they get in there and it's totally different. And also in answer to your question about the gap in age, I don't know about overall, and I think it really is individual to centers. In our center, we have 10 years and then we have less than 5. And that's because all the tenured people have retired. And that's what pushed them out. So we're getting the new people in, and they're lower in seniority because of that. Yeah. But our people, we rarely have anybody leave and go to another agency. In the 30 years I've been there, we've had 3.
That's really good.
Actually, I have 3 questions, but the answers should be really short.
I'm just kidding.
I'm on the tech engineering side, but I always think this kind of stuff is just really fascinating, with hiring and retention, stuff like that. Anyway, so aside from, I'm guessing, like background checks, I thought that was really neat about the traits instead of resumes hiring aspect. That was really interesting. What's like the biggest trait that filters people out, you know, like multitasking skills, which like my wife has. She was a dispatcher. I can't talk and listen to the radio at the same time on the phone, you know, that kind of thing. Or communication skills, soft skills, I don't know, typing, or maybe it's performance under stress, you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think it's hard to analyze how someone's going to respond in the moment when you're dealing with a call, you know, like Derek was sharing earlier, like, oh, there's a stabbing, like, you know, there's blood and all this excitement. It's hard to garner that just from an interview. But I think what we kind of look for is when we're asking questions, right? We ask questions like, tell us about a time that you had to help someone through a traumatic incident, right? That kind of gives us a clue into, like, first of all, what's the worst trauma you've been exposed to? Because you're about to hear some things. And then also, what level of resiliency do you kind of operate at, right? Are you a freak out? Like, do you lose it? or are you able to kind of hold it together and kind of get things moving in the right direction? Like, so we ask simple questions like that. Tell us about that. Tell me about a time that you've had a conflict at work. Like, how do you handle that? Because that's going to tell us a little bit more about their communication, interpersonal communication skills, and things like their integrity, right? Are they willing to listen to other people lie about things and not say anything? Like, where's the line for them? So you start to ask some questions like that, and I can send you some of the questions that we use that just kind of gives us a little bit of a peek. And we ask all of those questions, like we ask all those questions in the same fashion for our panels, but then we have a second selection interview. So once that panel interview is done, the panel tells me, hey, this person, they give me all the feedback on all the applicants, and then I say, okay, well, if there's an area, I tell them beforehand, if there's an area that like this question doesn't really fully get answered, or you wish they would have said more, let me know, because in the selection interview, it's a free-for-all. I have some questions that I just to keep the conversation going, but I'm really trying to dig into some of the other things that maybe you didn't answer in that first interview. I want to know more about your personality and your character and those types of things. And so I think that the softer skills, like we can teach people how to type. Obviously, it's helpful if you come with some ability to type and you don't do this, but the skills of the job can be taught for the most part. I mean, there's going to be people who get in and they can't handle like the high level of activity. Multitasking is a myth. It's just we don't actually do two things at one time. We just move really fast from one thing to another and then back, you know? So it's just about how well they can kind of hang in that level of activity.
So it sounds like the biggest one that prevents people from getting through is the, I guess, like the grace under fire, if you will, because you just don't know what that's going to be till
yeah,
it
we don't
like,
know.
or in
That one
sports, we'd
flies
say,
under the
you know,
radar
do they have
sometimes.
the clutch gene, you know?
Yeah,
Okay.
that flies under the radar a little bit.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
And then the second question was, so once they get into the job, which is the biggest like aspect of the job that filters people out long term? Like, is it the long term stress burnout, or schedule, pay, culture that you mentioned, stuff like that?
In my experience, once you're in and you feel pretty confident about the job you're doing, you'll put up with some other things. Like, you know, it's not any one particular thing. But I think in the early days, if you don't make it through like training or through your probation, it's more than likely because you kind of got in your own way. To be honest, you're not responding to feedback, you're making things more difficult for yourself. You know, there are obviously some that it just wasn't meant for them and they figure it out, you know, in that time frame. But yeah.
And then my last question was with schedules, which is a big issue, I know. And yeah, back in the day, many years ago, I worked a 410 schedule in a traffic department. And yeah, that was probably the best schedule I ever worked in my life. Yeah, I'd love to see that happen where I'm at, but that's another thing. Anyway, I was thinking though in this, because you were talking about the 12-hour shifts and stuff, it's like pretty much a standard in the medical industry. Like doctors and nurses, it's 312s.
Mm-hmm.
Has anybody ever tried something like that for dispatching?
312s?
That's my last guy. Yeah.
Well, I mean, the 312 concept is they do work 312s, then they're off for 4, then they work 412s,
Right.
and then they're off
And
for
so
3.
that's where the
yeah.
it's 312s.
So the rotating
that's it.
312.
It's 36 hours unless you're taking another shift, or they can take
Yeah.
a shift and split it into 2.
So
that kind of thing.
I mean, I'm not an expert on shifts, but I know that there are some FLSA and some cutoffs. So we need to make sure that obviously we're getting to that 80 hours in a 2-week period, and how I haven't looked at like a rotating where it's like 3 on, 3 off, 3 on, 3 off, 3 on, 3 off kind of a thing. Because if you
in theory, it's
yeah.
like a raise. You know, okay, I'm
Yeah.
working 36 and getting whatever equivalent pay or whatever. But
Yeah.
that extra day, you know, just like with the 410s or compared to 5/8s, you know, stuff like that.
Yeah, I know there's a lot of creative ways. I mean, I know that Stockton PD does it's a 510 or something they call it. I don't know. It's like 1 week. It's like every other weekend they have a full weekend off. I've seen it on paper, but I'm not an expert. Yeah, something like that. But it does work for people who maybe don't have the seniority to bid for a shift, so they could have weekends off. So it does rotate so that even everyone, no matter if you're
5 days on the job, or if you're 10 years on the job, you're going to get a weekend off every other weekend. So there are some creative ways to work within the parameters of California, like labor laws, with the shifts and things. But I think for us, the 410s works really well because, so on the 12s, just to kind of give you an insight, like if you work a day shift, our day shift was 6 in the morning till 6 p.m. If you work a day shift, you're coming in at 6 a.m. and things are pretty calm, right? You get an opportunity to ease into the day, you have your coffee, maybe take a couple calls, you know, and then things ramp up slowly. If you're coming in on a graveyard shift and you're working 1800 to 06, you're coming in and you're basically hopping on a moving train. Like that's, your shift starts because everything is just, and those people who get off at 18, they want to go. They've already been here for 12, they're like, where you at? I want to give up this radio. I don't want to take another phone call. So when the shifts butted up directly with each other, it created, I think, more of a stressful environment at shift change. With the 10s, there's built-in overlap times. So we have the opportunity for our dispatchers to go to briefing with our officers, especially if there was an incident that happened on the last shift that they could debrief for them and they get a little bit more closure from some of the incidences, they get to go to briefing. But also then when the shift is coming in, the off-going shift is like, oh God, I have more support. Okay, I can breathe a little bit and ease my way out of the job, out of the day. So I feel like from the wellness component, that overlap, and then also an overlap Wednesday where we're all there together. I can't physically fit all of the people that work on a Wednesday in my center. Like we don't have the space for them, but that gives them opportunities to do other things. They could go to training, they could work in the Arctic, they could work on a project. It's a day that they don't necessarily have to put a headset on. We also offer some wellness components where we allow them time to go work out. So that gives people time to focus on some wellness initiatives for themselves as well. So like I said, our dispatchers were like, if we go to 10s, I'm quitting. And then every single one of them stayed and loves it. I have not heard a bad thing about them since we went to them. So I don't know if any of my people are watching on YouTube, but they'll correct me when I get back if I'm wrong. But any other questions? No? If you are so inclined, because I'm always trying to make this better and I realize I talked really fast today. I probably left a few things out. But I do have a survey. If you're willing to, it's a quick 5-question survey. If you're willing to kind of give me some feedback, let me know what you liked and what I could do better. That would be super helpful for me. And I will be doing a version of this presentation at NAPCO, so come there. Awesome.
Thank you, Mandy.
Thank you.
As you can see, lunch has arrived, but they're not ready yet. Just a couple of reminders coming up. August will only be a frequency coordination via Zoom on August 13th because the APCO International Conference is in San Antonio, August 2nd through the 5th. Then September 10th will be in Lathrop. And then October, again, frequency coordination only via Zoom on October 8th. And the California APCO State Conference, October 18th through the 21st. It's on the back of your agenda. So looking forward to seeing everybody there. And before we break for lunch, let's do our door prizes that we have. I've asked Michael to come up and